All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the March Assessment Coordinators meeting for the elementary. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your taking the time to do this. We're gearing up towards the start of the forward exam, so I just kind of wanted to touch base. I'm going to go through some things very quickly, a couple of things that there have been some shifts, and then we're going to talk about just kind of update you on where everything is at. We will have one more meeting this year in April to kind of wrap things up as you are winding up the year, and to talk about data and when all these results are going to be back for families. So that being said, let's get started, and I will share my slide deck with you. Okay. So we're going to take a look at this meeting. Thank you for being here. We're going to spend the majority of our time talking about the forward exam and a couple things that are in the process, in flux and change. We're going to talk about the climate survey briefly. We'll talk about DLM, and we'll just kind of update you on a couple other pieces as we go. Keep in mind that, again, I appreciate all the support that you give all the time to each other and to us. We want to make sure that we're here for you. So if you do have a question during this presentation, we've got group power and can think about and process potential solutions to the problem. Also, we have people who've never done this before, and we have people who've done this as many times as it's ever been given. So let's use the collective wisdom of the group to ensure that we have a smooth implementation for all students. So thank you in advance. So let's jump into the forward exam. Like I said, I just gave this to the principals, so there's some things that I've reviewed with them because they have not necessarily been in the loop as you have. Our window, remember, opens Monday, and we'll talk a little bit about Monday actually is a no test day. But it closes on the 29th of April. There are no extensions this year. This is the typical window. And again, you should have tickets already. So here we'll get into it. You recently should have received the tickets for the forward exam from Sarah. If you did not, please let us know. We'll kind of try and work to track those down. Now, just because you have tickets in place and printed doesn't mean that that is the end of the story. If a student has a change in their IEP, if they had an open IEP, if there are things that change for students who are English learners or who have 504s, don't panic. They need to be added in the background, but it is important that you understand that now, at this point in time, we don't have the ability to just drop everything and get that to happen right away. We've got the forward going on at all of our schools, including the high schools, and we've got Aspire coming up as well. So we will work very hard at getting these changes made for you. But first of all, you have to let us know the changes. We won't be able to intuit that, like feeling the force that Gompers has had a student that changed their accommodations. So please make sure you email either Sarah or myself. Now, once you've done that, give us 24 to 48 hours to actually make those changes. They may or may not require a change in the ticket so that you will have to print that ticket anew, but give us a little bit of time. You know that we try and get back to you as quickly as possible. We will continue to pledge to do that. But when we've got multiple assessments at all the buildings, sometimes we take a little bit longer than what we normally do. So thank you for your patience in advance. And again, let us know any changes as they come up. Now, I just want to remind you again of the test times at each one of the content areas. Please keep in mind that we've talked about the text-dependent analysis before, that is what DPI has said they would like to see happen first when students are the freshest, so that test fatigue is not something that comes in on the text-dependent analysis because it's a pretty intense activity. You notice that there are 4 sessions. As I said, we'd like to see if we could start with the TDA session 1 first, but after that, you can do them in any order. And the times for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade are all identical, so you don't have to worry about there being different times for different grades. Please note, session 3, listening. Session 3 does require something that the students can listen to. You don't want to use the Chromebook speakers. So you will need to have headsets. Now the headsets can be those headsets that were used for access testing. They can be headphones that have been used in classrooms, and they can be earbuds. So, if students come in and say, hey, can I use my earbuds? That's fine, given the one caveat that students should not be using Bluetooth earbuds. Here's why. Because the most up-to-date earbuds that are Bluetooth will likely be able to connect with their phone and with their Chromebook at the same time. So in the best case, student is listening to music while they're testing. Okay, that might be a distraction, it might not be. However, in worst case, they could be having somebody talk to them. They could be mumbling the question to themselves when in reality they're making a phone call. They're phoning a friend and getting the answers from them. So again, Bluetooth earbuds are not something that we would like to see. Are they absolutely forbidden? No. If you want to take the time, as you really should, and say, all right, cell phones out, turn them off. One of the things that we've found is that by putting them in a plastic bag and setting them on the teacher's desk, or the teacher collecting them in one location, that is a really good way of ensuring that cell phones are put away. And then the students will get them back when they are finished, of course, with the testing at the end. So just something to keep in mind. I know that listening is only 20 minutes long, but it is something that we need to be aware of. Okay, once again, a reminder, we've been through this before, but again, I just really want to make sure that you know that students can have the writer's checklist on their desk during testing. And once again, as we've said before, this should not be the first time that they actually see this document. So you can print those off and share those right now with students and with staff, or if you've done this before, like last week you gave it out, perfect. It does include 3 sections, so planning, focus, and proofreading. So those are the 3 big areas, and it has just literally a list of things that you should think about if you are writing and taking the TDA portion of the test. I've linked the resources, this in the resource page at the bottom of this slide, so you can click there and get a hold of that. I've also put on there, I think there's tips to take the TDA. There's a 1-page document, something that can be used during the classroom instruction, but not on the test. Only this particular document can be used on the test. Okay, let's continue forward. You'll notice that 3rd through 5th grade, the test times are approximately the same, or exactly the same. That changes in middle school. Keep in mind that all these test times are estimated. There's no clock running, so that if you plan, for instance, to do math session 1, and you're allotting 45 minutes, and that's it from start to finish, that might be pretty tight. Remember, there's room for instruction. Students will have to go through and read the directions. And so once they actually hit go and start the test, that takes approximately 45 minutes. This 45 minutes is based on a number that DPI has looked at and said, over time, how long is the average test, or we get most of the test done in how much time? And 45 minutes is the number. Again, because it's not timed, students can go longer. If they go longer than what you've scheduled, so say that you've got 45 minutes you scheduled, and you're going to take it and get started, and then suddenly it's recess time and the students are anxious to get going. Keep in mind that you can exit and return, and it will save this. And a method of pausing the test, pause and exit, that I don't recommend is to simply close the cover of the Chromebook. I don't recommend that. It will, however, not erase the test. It will, if they have not answered a question, it will come back to the last answered question, and then they will have to move forward on that. So just something to keep in mind as you're planning out how much time it takes. Remember that students can pause and exit, and they can come back. There is no, if I remember correctly, and I think Sarah and I have been through this, there is no time limit on the pause and exit. So if they take the test on Tuesday, the 22nd, and are halfway through when time is up, theoretically, they can come back on the 29th of April and finish up. Obviously, I wouldn't want to do that. Let's get things done and move ahead so that we can finally be finished with the standardized testing from the state and get back to instruction. But be that as it may, that's something that is really important. Another thing that, and while I'm talking about this, another thing that is critical is what happens if, let's say that you scheduled math session 1 for today, and the student says, accidentally, because they get to pick which session they're in, the student actually clicks on session 2. Now, my first response is don't panic. In most cases, you can just go ahead and do that particular session. I mean, if we go back a couple slides, if you're in session 3 listening and they click on session 4 reading, you obviously haven't scheduled 50 minutes time for a 20-minute session. But students and you should not panic. If a student gets logged into a session and it's the wrong session, they have 2 minutes to click out of that. And they should not answer more than, I believe it's 1 or 2 questions. If they do, I have to, I mean, at this point, if they're in it for 2 minutes or less, they've answered 1 or 2 questions, I can erase that and reset the test. If it's longer than that, I need to apply to DPI, which means I have to come up with a rationale why we would do this and what's going to prevent that from happening again. And so I will be asking you and your teacher staff to come up and tell me why should little Timmy get a chance to do this, and why was he in there for 10 minutes and he answered 15 questions and we need to reset it. Why? What's likely going to happen if it's 10 minutes and 15 questions is, nope, that's it. They need to finish the test. If they panic and submit, only DPI at that point can override that. And so there has to be a really strong argument why that happens, why that's needed. So just a couple things to think about. I know it sounds like there's a question.
Sorry, Tim, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just was wondering, typically with any of the assessments, there's usually some type of directions or instructions for the proctor to read, and it'll reiterate, go over which session this is, so that the students are definitely on the same one, and they usually ask you to walk around. Is that still, again, I'm used to a different state, so I'm just checking to make sure I'm understanding.
Right, so there are instructions, and you will be saying, today we're doing English Language Arts session 2, but that doesn't prevent all students from paying less attention and clicking, or because especially third graders, the fine motor skills and actually getting close to, but not actually on session 2, they actually clicked on session 3 accidentally, not realizing what they did, and they just go ahead. I mean, most of the cases are not cases where students are messing around, and that it's literally they let go of the mouse too soon or too late, and they clicked on the wrong session. So again, in that case, just don't panic. Stop, pause and exit. Don't submit, pause and exit, and then let me know via email or a text or a phone call, but I need to know the student and the grade, the section, the student ID, the information, the specifics, and then we'll talk about what happens next as far as resetting the test or applying to DPI. Hope that helps. Thanks. Tracy?
Yeah, so if they click on the wrong test, though, you can always just pause and exit, and they could just go into the correct one and then come back to that one the day you have it scheduled, right?
That's a great question. I'm not sure that you can have two sessions going at the same time, but pausing and exiting should allow you to come back, allow them to come back in and actually get onto the right page and finish the correct session. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yep. Great question. Yes. And again, Brooke, they could just, again, my first statement was don't panic, which means that, yes, the student can just go ahead and finish that session. As long as, again, really the big mix up is with the ELA sessions 2 and 3 being so short and session 1 and 4 being quite a bit longer. If they click on session 4 and you've scheduled, 30 minutes to make sure that everybody finishes session 2, it's an internal, it's a scheduling issue. It's not, there's nothing that gets messed up on their tests. But yes, they could go ahead and just finish out what they're doing and come back to do the session they missed at a later date, later time. Okay, let's continue on. So mathematics is 45 minutes for each of the sessions. If you're a fourth grader, you now have the joy of adding science. So we have 3 sessions of science. Again, none of these sessions, ELA, mathematics, science, or social studies, each session is a standalone piece. And it does not require, you're not required to do science session 2 after session 1, science session 3 after 2. They don't build on each other. They're simply different sessions. So keep in mind when planning, we're talking about 3 35-minute sessions approximately. And finally, with social studies, again, 2 35-minute sessions. Once again, with the new state social studies standards, this is the first year that the forward exam will actually take those standards into account. So the questions have changed. If you're familiar with the new standards, you would say you'll be able to see those played out in the sessions. I would appreciate hearing from you, your staff's experience with this, like, oh, the students did really well, or they struggled with this kind of question. I've never seen that kind of question before. Please let us know so that we can make sure we share and give everyone a heads up about what the experience is like for students. Hang on just a second. All right, so let's move on then. Again, I shared sample schedules with you in the past. This is on our website. And we've had staff members team members from different schools share with you. If you have specific questions, please let us know. Every school's experience, what your schedule looks like, the starting time, ending time. We normally do this on Thursdays, so we want to maintain that flow of things. It all has to work for you in your school. Okay, here is something that has changed. Because we want to make sure, in fact, I'm going to jump to this particular slide first, and we'll come back to that slide. Let's see. Okay, Tracy, I'm asking you a question. So when students log in, let's just say they're logging into mathematics. They will have their ticket for mathematics. They will have their username and their password, and it will log in and show me that I have 2 sessions, and they're just print text. They are hyperlinked so that they are blue in color. When you click on one, it'll take you to that session. When you have submitted that session and you're done, it will change color on the hypertext. It will be gray. So it looks similar. It will be a different color. So that would denote when you are finished with that. Okay, so let's talk about Madison Virtual Elementary and virtual students and testing. Again, homeschools are responsible and accountable. They're used on, these students represent your students. These are your students. And so the accountability lies with the homeschool to actually ensure testing happens. Unfortunately, even though it's a computer-based test, we cannot do virtual testing. So we're going to talk about the process in a moment, that what was just shared with the principals. And this is 95% kind of figured out. It's still something that is in flux, but here is what we have heard from students and families and staff, is that they are really stressed about testing. Imagine that you are in a classroom, you're a 5th grade teacher, and you have students from 12 different elementary schools, which is not made up. There are cases like this. If we say that the homeschool is set up to create the virtual student schedule, I might have every day of the week a different set of students gone. In which case, for the 6 weeks, 5 weeks, including our spring break, for those 5 weeks, I am not going to have a full classroom. And you already know full well what that feels like for your in-person staff when kids are gone. And so one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to really focus on the in-person testing for MVE students to take place in April, on the week of April 18th, right? We're working to ensure that all the details are in place. So this is the week that is set up for them to come to your school to ensure that they get the testing taken care of.
Tim, and that looks like it would be full days at those buildings based on the number of tests that are going to be done.
So that's a great question. I will get to that. One of the things that I want to make sure is that we know that attendance in general on Mondays and Fridays are the worst of the week. So we're saying that we're going to focus on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to ensure that we get the most students from the virtual setting to the schools. Keep in mind, these students have not been in school all year this year. They are virtual for a reason. And so this, one of the added reasons why we're picking this particular week is that school psychs and social workers are setting up a process to ensure that students feel comfortable coming into the schools. They haven't been in schools. We're paying attention to what is the emotional process that they are going through, not only just to come to the school, but then take a big test. There's a lot in play here. So here's what we're looking at. Of that week, grades 3, 4, and 5 would be testing on Tuesday and Wednesday. Grade 4 would be on Thursday in addition. So kind of spreading out. We know that this is a lot of time testing for each of the grades, and so it would not be good to do this on one day for each grade. We're working with transportation right now. So those students who are outside of the walking distance from your schools will be offered an opportunity to ride a bus on a route that is currently exists for your current students. So they would be able to get on the bus in the morning. They would then be able to take the test. And then in the afternoon, they would also ride the bus home again. And we're also letting parents know that that may not, I mean, they may not feel comfortable with that. And so parents and families can drop off a student and then pick them up. They are not, however, to walk home. So for instance, on Wednesday is a day in which, you know, third and fifth are there, and suppose they get done shortly after lunch. It's not time for students to say, well, that's good enough, thank you, and we'll see you later, and walk home. They would need to have a family member pick them up, or they wait for the bus. If there is a student who misses, for instance, Tuesday or Wednesday in grades 3 and 5, they can come on Thursday. MVE classes will be held on Monday and Friday of this week, on the 18th. So we're working with transportation to ensure that there will be a list of students who at your school be shared with the principal, and who is expected to ride the bus versus who is expected to walk. Food service is also being notified to make sure that the counts are all there, that your students are going to be fed as well. Now, this is a huge change from what we've done in the past and what we've said, but keep in mind that we're trying to focus on how can we serve and balance that need between giving the test and serving students and families first. So as far as communication, I'm going to jump back to a slide in a moment. Communication about this concept will go out from MVE first to families. You don't have to communicate this. So there will be a fairly detailed, long communication saying, here's what we're planning. What you need to do is to think about where would those students be in your classroom, in your school. It could be that they're we're talking about some schools have 1 or 2 students. We have other schools that have 25 or 30 students. And so it makes a difference. There's no way I can say, here's how it's going to work, because it depends on your school and how many students that you're going to be actually giving the assessment. And we don't know how many families will say, you know what, I think I'm going to opt out. So as we get closer, this is also one of the reasons why we're holding this until nearly the last week of the window, is just to allow for communication to get out, allow for school psychs and social workers to work with families and students to get them ready for this, and then actually give them time and space to do the testing. I'm going to jump back a couple slides with some details about where we're at. Again, this was just shared with the elementary principals. So today, it's being shared with the principals, the same information, this same slide deck I just went through at 2 o'clock with them. It's being shared with you. Communication will be sent out to the principals, to the staff, to the families beginning tomorrow. There will be specific information about bus riders and non-bus riders. We'll let that kind of percolate. After spring break, that's when elementary, there will be updates given about where things are at, and that's when I would say we'll send out a school level communication with families, because now it's so far ahead, things can change. And so after break, it's time for everybody to breathe, to relax, to be able to go in and say, okay, yes, we will do this, or no, we won't. And we've thought about it and made a decision. So by April 8th, principals will have in their hands specific logistics regarding transportation, about who is riding which bus, who is asked to walk to school because they live close enough, etc. And then we have the window. So we are going to be around. This is new for all of us. We're going to be around to help support you, and we'll certainly be available to kind of brainstorm or troubleshoot, or just be a listening ear if that's what you need. So we're going to be helping support this. This is work with out of the chief's office, as well as with transportation and food services. I'm going to take a breath because I think that I want just that to sink in a little bit. I know the principals asked a lot of questions. So I'm going to stop sharing and just let everybody take a moment and see what questions you might have regarding this kind of shift in how we do things. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Tim. Hey, so then what about kids who are absent or can't come in on that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday?
So we have one more week in which to actually do that because the window closes on the 29th. So that week would be the 18th through the 22nd. So like anyone else, that might be the makeup time. Now, transportation will not be provided the following week. So it would have to be the families would have to get the students to come in, that kind of thing. And again, I don't know how many families are going to actually do this because again, they have said we're virtual for a reason. So I want to make sure that they have a safe alternative and something that actually doesn't pull students out of their classes for consecutively for 5 weeks of testing. So
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Tim, if I missed this, but if we already made a plan with our families and it's all set up, can we just move forward with that?
oh, I knew someone was going to ask that.
Because we are all set to go and our families, we've already like made times for
Yeah.
their work schedules and their virtual classes, and they're all ready to go.
Let's talk about that on one-to-one because I would support that. I mean, if you've already made the effort, the family, let's not throw confusion into things. So that's where I'm at, but I do need to double check with the chiefs to make sure that I will be an advocate for what you have planned. Okay.
Should I just stick on when everybody gets off for us to connect quick?
Yeah, if you
Okay.
could. Thanks. Other questions? Okay, let's continue on. Or Lee, did you have a question?
Yeah, again, sorry if
No,
I
no,
missed
no.
this. So who is administering the assessment? Is it the virtual teacher or is it,
It is not.
it's
No.
not the virtual teacher?
It would have to be
Okay.
someone in, just as if you were. So what we've done is we've said, the expectation originally was you were going to invite them to come in when it fit your schedule with your staff proctoring. Because of the multiple schools mixed in one classroom, the idea now is to say, no, we're going to do it this week. They'll still come to you. The expectation is you'll have some space for them and that someone will proctor their assessments. But again, you can also say, because of one of the reasons I went through the times is you could theoretically have third, fourth, and fifth graders doing ELA session 2 and 3 and 4 together, because it's approximately the same time. So you could certainly mix the grades like that. But yes, it would be your school staff that is expected to someone to serve as the proctor for that. Great, thanks. And again, as we move ahead and you've got other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Once again, I will share my phone number towards the end of this to ensure that if you have questions, you can get really timely answers. Okay. I'm also including in the slide deck samples of what a schedule might look like on a 3-day, a 2-day, and actually a 1-day, which I don't like. Because I don't want you to do a 1-day test for grades 3 and 5. It's entirely possible, but past experience has shown that when we've tried that, it was not good for students. It was not good for anyone. So there's a 2-day on this draft version. There's a sample of what, like I'm not saying Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but you could pick on a 2-day cycle for grades 3 and 5 and a 3-day cycle for grade 4, however you want to do that. So just something to play around with. And these are based on DPI samples. Okay. Just a reminder again that you need to plan for professional development for those people who are proctoring. It's on our website. The videos are updated. It takes about 30 minutes to go through this. And you'll also see that there are PDFs of the slide deck, in various versions, 3 per page, 6 per page, etc. So that's available. And they do need to, just as we've talked about in the past, sign a confidentiality agreement. This is a secure test. Even the tickets are secure. So don't be taking pictures of tickets and posting them online. That will get everyone really unsettled, shall we say. I've been getting some of these from you. I will be reaching out and sharing if I haven't heard from you. Just a reminder, actually, I'll send you a blank one. Just sign it, send it back. I would appreciate that. And once again, just a review of, because now this is really go time. Tech Services has made sure that everything is ready to go. This can be done on Chromebooks only, not through ClassLink. Here is something that I would suggest you start even maybe tomorrow, is just say, all right, everybody, let's restart our Chromebooks. So power it down and wait about 5 seconds, power it back up. And that is something that is going to update all the operating system and any new software that's there. So we want the most recent operating system for the Chrome operating system to be in place. Once again, students will have to log out in order to get to this app menu. So it's on the login page of the Chromebooks, and in the lower left-hand side, you will see something called an app menu. Click on that, and it might look like what's here on the screen, and they would end up clicking on the DRC Insight online assessments. If the student was involved with taking the access test, they might see something like this. They might be given a choice, because DRC also is something that is the company that does the access test. So if that's the case, then please have them click on the button with public instruction, or Wisconsin is the label. That will get them to the forward exam. No other exam should actually show up if they click on the other boxes, but that would just save time. And if they say, where, I don't see this, that might be a reason why. Okay. I've also shared with you in the past how to get the updated students, how they're doing. So this is on the student status dashboard. I will be running a report once a week and share it with you and the principal in your building. I will share the update on how you're doing, how many students, what percentage you're at, the grade, etc. And I will give you that list of students who have not started or not completed. The ones that are most critical probably are going to be, especially on a Monday morning, are probably going to be those ones that say in progress. That might mean that the student simply closed their Chromebook and did not submit the test. And so you want to make sure that those tests, it's not going away. Ultimately, if it just sits idle like that until the end of the window, it will be scored as it is. But you want to make sure that they might have just missed the last question, and they may have just forgotten to submit. And so the students who are in progress will be the ones to focus on with that particular list. So I'll do that on a weekly basis as we go through this. Most likely on Monday mornings, I will get you that list so that as you can look forward to the week and plan, it's like, oh, we missed 3 5th graders or something like that. So And I just want to double check to make sure that there's no confusion or less confusion. Early in the year, there was a couple documents that I'll take the blame on this one. I read and posted that it was March 22nd was a no test date. It actually is Monday. So if you're gearing up to start testing on Monday, that is a board dedicated no test date. It is the Baha'i Faith New Year called Nowruz. And so that is coming up on Monday. That is the only no test date during our window for forward. So as always, you can find these on our website. And I'm going to just pause to see if there are any other questions before we go on to climate survey.
Tim, I was just wondering, is it normal for buildings to decide to do some of the testing before spring break and then come back and do it? Or do most schools typically start after the break with a fresh start?
I would suggest, and I know in the past that it's probably been at least half, if not more, of the elementary schools have started prior to the break. And you don't have to finish a grade, but it would be nice to get a jump start, especially we know that ELA is going to take a big chunk of time, but you may want to start with ELA session 1 and then maybe do a science session or something like that. So is it required? No. Is it probably a good thing? Yeah, I would suggest that that is something that you start before break. So
is it typically school by school, or is there more of a
Yes.
consistent pattern for a group of schools to think about doing it more similarly?
The consistent pattern is that there's no consistent pattern.
Okay,
It's
good to
school
know.
by school. One of the things I will probably do is reach out to each one of you and just say, can you please send me your schedule so that we can be of support? If we've got no schools testing the first week, okay, but I need to know about support. This is a crazy time of year for Sarah and I. We've got high school, middle school, elementary, all testing, plus advanced placement, scheduling. It gets a little bit intense. So if we know your schedule, I share that with tech services so that they can actually check on make sure there's somebody there on call. If day 1 for testing, you might have some technology issues. So I will send out an email, and I know Sarah is writing this down. Remember to do this. So yes, I'll send out an email asking you for your test schedule once you've created it, and just so we know, I can share that with others.
Tim, I had a question. Watching the Proctor PD, I know that sometimes teachers, like the students, do something on their device after the test, like when, say, they complete one of the session early and then they want to go into Lexia, or they want to go into Dreambox, or they want to work on a writing, or is that, from what I understand from the Proctor PD, that's not allowed?
It's probably not best practice. However, I mean, what we used to do in the past was say, well, pull out a book and you can read. I mean, so this is something, my biggest concern with that is that the volume of the device's speakers, it's off. So that even, if they're into Lexia and suddenly, there's a voice talking, it's disrupting everyone else in the room. So as long as that's the understanding, I'm okay with that. Again, you've got students who potentially could be doing something to keep themselves occupied while they're waiting for their classmates. I'm all for that. It could be pulling out a book from the LMC. It could be doing Lexia, as long as it's a situation where we're not disrupting the others who are taking it. Okay, now, deep breath. We're going to do fine. And then Tim tells you, remember way back at the beginning of the year, I know several of you asked me, are we going to do a climate survey? And Tim said, nope, I've been told that we have not going to do that. Well, I've been told differently. So Climate survey. Climate survey is being put together by the Research and Innovation Department, the very same department that has done this in the past. It's going to be very similar to what we did probably 3 years ago, which means we're going to connect with all students, grades 3 through 12, all staff members, and all families. And there will be versions of the climate survey for each one of those. We are going to work with the instructional technology team, the LMS staff, to put a login link on your LMS page. And so just like in the past, students will be able to go in, click the link, and will be able to go to the survey. Now, things I don't know about. I don't know if there's a stated percent completion expectation. I know last time that we did this, it was you're expected to get at least 90%. I have not heard anything yet. And if I do, I will of course let you know right away. This is going to open in mid-April, approximately. We don't have a set date yet, but it will be open then. I don't know for how long. There will be information that comes out with details in upcoming administrative bulletins. So that's what I know at this point. The questions that are on the survey are going to be similar to those in the past, some identical, so that again, as if you're looking to work through school improvement items, it would be, you could say, 3 years ago, this is the response that we got from students on this item. This year, here's the response that we got. So part of it is looking at where are we at given the pandemic, et cetera. And so that is important. We're also aligning some of these with a national survey so that we can say in the future, we'll be able to say, here's how we're doing compared to students in Wisconsin or students across the nation. So that's what's coming in mid to late April. More information as it's available. All right. Dynamic learning maps is underway the same day as Forward. Dynamic learning maps, you'll recall, is the alternate assessment. This is for students with IEPs in which they are being taught to the essential elements, different set of standards than what is that the students in the standard classrooms receive. Professional development is going, okay, let me just stop. I'm sorry, I'm responding to questions. Linda, when will the window close? I don't know yet. And will the climate survey be used for SIP goals? I would expect that that would be one of the uses that you could use. And especially if your school is something called ATSI identified, that would certainly be something that I would use it for in the future. Again, this has been resurrected. I've been pushing for it, but I haven't had an opportunity to talk to anybody about this for some time. And then I did some checking, and sure enough, it's coming back. So yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that like we would get the results back before the end of the school year is the thought behind that, perhaps, maybe.
I will tell you what, I will guarantee that you'll get the results back. I don't know when, but you'll get them back. Yeah, I don't know how much of this is going to be kind of just click the box like a Likert scale, and how much of it will be put in your comments and that they'll have to be synthesized. So that's one of the things that I'll get back to the R&I team about and say, so give me the length of the window and what the turnaround is expected to be. So thank you. Dynamic learning maps. Again, your staff, your CC staff, if they're involved with this, has already completed the training for it. and they have probably done something called the first contact. So that is the method that is going to be used for assessing the student with the IEP. Remember that dynamic learning maps involves a short testlet that comes via email. So the staff member will get an email with a testlet in English language arts for Tim on Monday or whenever you hit start. And that will be 3 to 4, maybe 6 questions. We'll respond, we'll answer, reply the following day, you'll get another 4 to 6 questions. And that will continue until in each content area, there's a different length of time and a different number of sets of questions. So keep in mind that your CC staff are doing this and that they don't assume that they have nothing going on except to help support forward testing. They are doing this, several of them are, and so please provide them the support that they need to be able to do well with this for our students with IEPs. Okay, the last thing I just want to share before we jump into questions is the Apple test for those buildings that are doing the DLI programs. We are holding on that. We are not doing that this spring. So that is there's a hold on that until the fall when we typically schedule that. Naglieri will also be given in the fall. And I think that's where we're at. And you all are aware that ANET has an extended window to the middle of May. I do want to jump in and we will open this for questions, but I do want to just remind you that if you are getting any families who choose to opt their child out, it needs to be in writing. You need to send that documentation or a copy of it, a scanned copy, to myself or to Sarah. This is only good for 1 year, but it does have an effect on how your school looks both on the state report card and on the federal ranking system. And so the federal identification, there are schools that are close to being identified. And oftentimes it's just because you did not have enough students in a particular group who took the test because of opt-outs. Not always, but just be aware. So one of the things that I've heard from families already is that, well, the teacher said they don't use this data anyways. You're right. The forward is not designed to be a test for to immediately improve classroom instruction. The data is there. It may be that the school team, so SBLT, is using this data. It helps drive school improvement. There's a lot of things that it does. It is not designed for classroom to affect immediate classroom instruction. So please, I don't want to hear teachers say, because I do get this from families in opt-out letters, well, the teacher says that my child shouldn't take this anyways, or they never get the data. And they may not see that, but that's, I guess, on us as data folks in central office to start making sure that staff are aware of how the data is in support of what they do. Yes, thank you, Sharon. You're right. It's a summative test designed to measure specific standards. There are reasons to take this. And so I encourage families, all families, and all staff to support families in taking the assessment.
And Tim, in light of some of the new changes you spoke about in the report card, it was earlier work you presented to the principals. There was such a critical component of not only having the students take the exam, but how they do on the exam, that I just can't imagine that conversation coming out anymore. It may have been the way that things used to be, but it's
Right.
so impacted by the way the reporting and how your report card for your school and the information for the state are being seen. So I'm hoping that we can change that narrative.
Absolutely. And if anybody is struggling with that, or if your staff are really resistant to that and are encouraging students to opt out, please let me know and I can come in and just share information. I will not come down hard on anyone I just think it's a lack of information versus evil intent. So I would be more than happy to come in and talk with people. So, or you can come to office hours every Monday and Wednesday from 2 to 3. The link is found in the agenda, and here are our contact information. I know David was on earlier. He may still be on. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. He is awesome with supporting you and your data needs. So I am going to stop there. I'm going to stop recording.